Sai Ram. If I was told to pick up three most fantastic, fantabulous, mind-boggling, mind-blowing, taking the breath away kind of stories that I had either heard or seen or experienced with Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, what I am going to share now is definitely among them. This is a story that lends credence to the statement, truth is stranger than fiction. Because whatever it is that our minds can imagine, fantasize or build up, God's will and grace can create something that is even more spellbinding. This is a story that spans from the 1950s to the 1990s. It's a story that spans the city of Indore, the town of Rishikesh, the mighty Himalayas, and of course, our dear Puttaparthi. I first heard this from a classmate of mine, and ever since then, I have been so eager to listen to it directly from the source, Mr. Arun Mandale. And let me promise you that just like my jaw, your jaw too will drop down in awe and wonder. And at the end of all of that, we will just fall on our knees in love and gratitude to our dear Swami. Mr. Arun Mandale can be considered as one of the pioneers of the Sri Sathya Sai movement in Indore. He started the Samiti there back in the 1960s, 1963 if I am not mistaken. His home shifted multiple times, but it continued to be the center of all the activities of the Sri Sathya Sai organizations. This story is set in 1995. He was living at that point of time at Rambagh in Indore. Every Thursday, they would have bhajans at his home. Now, Mr. Mandale began to notice that every Thursday, new people were turning up for bhajans at his home. Being a wonderful host and a loving Sai brother, he made enquiries to find out how did they get to know of Swami, where have they come from, could he help them in some way. When he did this, what he found out surprised him. All of them unanimously said that they had been directed to his home by a sadhu, a monk, who sometimes was on the railway station platform, who was sometimes at the bus stand, sometimes in the town's market, different public areas. But to all the people who met him, he would say that if you want peace of mind, if you want happiness, if you want to experience satisfaction in life, you should attend bhajans, Sathya Sai bhajans. And where? At the residence of Mr. Arun Mandale. Then he would take a pencil and on a piece of paper, write down Mr. Arun Mandale's name along with his address at Rambagh and tell them to go there on Thursday. Now naturally, Mr. Mandale's curiosity was piqued. Who is this sadhu? And why is he sending people to my home? It's amazing. He knew that there is something phenomenal here. It was at that time that one of his friends, Mr. Jadia, came and told him that every day when he returned from work at the railway station, he used to see a sadhu who would have a large crowd gathering in front of him. And as days passed, the size of the crowds too seemed to be growing. Now Mr. Arun Mandale told him, Jadia, I think this is the person who is sending people to my home. So Jadia said, yes Arun, I will try to find out tomorrow. So the next day at the railway station, Mr. Jadia went up to this sadhu and told him that there is a friend of mine, his name is Arun, and he would like to come and see you. The sadhu laughed and said, oh yes, he may come. I have been sending people to his home. The friend was surprised. Do you know Arun Mandale? Yes, I know, he works at the Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board. Oh, how do you know him? Tell him that he can come and meet me tomorrow. And thus, the next day, Mr. Arun Mandale, along with his 10-year-old daughter Surbhi, went on his bicycle to the Indore railway station to meet this enigmatic sadhu who was sending people to his home for bhajans. Even as Mr. Mandale was approaching the sadhu, he told his daughter Surbi, "You touch the feet of that sadhu." And so, being an obedient daughter, she immediately fell at the sadhu's feet. Instantly the sadhu said, "Stop!" Mr. Mandale was surprised. What had happened? He told Mr. Mandale, "If you want to speak to me, there are two conditions. The first condition is that you should not fall at my feet. Second condition, I will fall at your feet." Whoa. This was something out of the ordinary. But so curious was Mr. Mandale to know what is happening that he agreed to the condition. He gave pada namaskar to this sadhu. And then the sadhu began to tell his story. And this is where the story gets even more fantastic. Now this sadhu was a disciple of Swami Shivananda. As a 12-year-old, he had joined the ashram because his father had brought him there and said, "Dear son, from today onwards, Swami Shivananda is your mother, he is your father, he is your guru, he is your everything. He'll take care of you in a worldly sense and a spiritual sense as well." And that is how the father had left him. And this sadhu, then a little boy of 12, began to grow up under the loving tutelage and guidance of Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh. In 1957, Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba visited Rishikesh and in fact visited Swami Shivananda's ashram. This sadhu remembered vividly the visit of this little lad because Swami was also young. He was in his 30s during that time. What surprised him was the amount of adoration and respect that his revered master Swami Shivananda displayed toward this very young Swamiji. In fact, at that point in time, Swami Shivananda was confined to a wheelchair and Swami would gently wheel him around now and then. Before Swami left the ashram, he patted on the knees of Swami Shivananda, materialized a japamala of Rudraksha beads for Swami Shivananda and actually cured him. Swami Shivananda, who was on the wheelchair, began to walk around, romp around the ashram, cured by Swami. During that period, this sadhu, who was then possibly a teenager, was surprised by certain actions of Swami Shivananda. He saw that his guru fell at the feet of this young Sai Baba. It was shocking for him. He had considered his guru to be the most supreme. And the most supreme is bowing down before somebody else? How is that possible? And the guru said, "Arey, this is my Krishna, this is my Kanhaiya, this is my Lord." That was a stunning revelation. Something interesting happened to this sadhu. When he would meditate, in his meditations, he began to see Swami. And the amazing thing is, he began to see Swami without any effort on his part. He would see him in the position of the third eye, where we put vibhuti, right? There. And this went on for several months, several years. 1963, Swami Shivananda gave up his body. The disciples were distraught and shocked and very upset, no doubt, but they knew life had to go on. They continued with their sadhana. This sadhu then went to the Himalayas from Rishikesh and he began to do his meditations and practices in a cave over there. And there too, the visions continued. He would see Swami. One day he noticed that he had run out of matches. Oh, he now had to trudge all the way back to civilization, back to town to buy a box of matches. Even as he was getting ready to set out, in walks Swami. Swami comes in with a box of matches and says, "You need this, right? Here, have it." The sadhu is thrilled. At that time, he thinks that Sathya Sai Baba, this Swami, he had come to our ashram as well. He too must be meditating in one of the caves around here. That's what he thought. Otherwise, how can he come, right? And then, he did not stop there. On a couple more occasions, he had Swami visiting his cave and blessing him. he became very touched and he decided, hey, next time I will go and see this Sathya Sai Baba in his cave. He must be somewhere nearby only, less than 2-3 kilometers. Otherwise, how can he come walking till here? So, I must pay a courtesy of visit to his cave rather than only him coming to me. And that was when this sadhu discovered that Sathya Sai Baba was not meditating in some cave in the Himalayas. He was located very far away in the south of India. He was now stunned. He said, he's staying in South India. Where? Madras. Back in those years, the kingdom of Madras, the province of Madras was so big, the whole of South India used to be considered as Madras. And now this person decided, I must go to Madras. And to Madras he went. He finds out that this person, this Sathya Sai Baba, is at Puttaparthi. That he needs to take a train to Bangalore, from Bangalore to Dharmavaram, and from Dharmavaram there is a bus that will take him to Puttaparthi, where he can have the darshan of Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So the sadhu followed the instructions. He took a train to Bangalore, and from there he took a train to Dharmavaram. It was late in the evening at Dharmavaram, and to his dismay, he got to know that the last bus to Puttaparthi had already left. So what he had to do when he went and made enquiries, he was told that the next bus would be early in the morning on the next day. So the sadhu decided to spend the night on the platform at Dharmavaram. He is used to sleeping in the cold, icy, hard Himalayan caves. The railway platform at Dharmavaram must have been like a wonderful bed for him. So he lay down there with the earth as his bedding and the sky as his blanket. The next morning, when he woke up, it was pitch dark. He could not see anything. And it felt so cold. The floor felt so hard. He was wondering, what is this? Where am I? Dear brothers and sisters, he wakes up from his sleep where he had slept, on the platform at Dharmavaram. And as he walks out of his cave in the Himalayas. He is totally disoriented. He is totally confused. What is happening? Was that all a dream? Did I dream that I traveled all the way to Puttaparthi? That's when he hears a voice. The voice of Bhagawan. The voice which tells him, dear child, your time has not yet come. When your time comes, I will call you. The sadhu then concluded this story and told Mr. Arun Mandale that in 1995, till then, he had not been able to visit Puttaparthi. But you, sir, he said, have been to Puttaparthi, have seen Sathya Sai Baba, have touched him, have conversed with him. That is why I say, let me fall at your feet, and you should not fall at my feet. Dear brothers and sisters, it is the humility of that sadhu that he says that you are all great because you have seen Sathya Sai Baba. How blessed is that sadhu that Sathya Sai Baba went to see him, meet him and help him in his cave. But one point that the sadhu made is so phenomenal, that we cannot step into Puttaparthi unless Bhagawan wills. We cannot think of Swami unless Swami wills. We cannot take his name on our lips until and unless he wills. Many times we get upset at people who criticize Swami or people who don't know Swami. I think we should look at it the other way. We have got to know Swami. We have been able to take his name. We have been able to go to Puttaparthi. We have been able to experience him. We should be grateful to that. It is not a question of taking a flight and then landing at Bangalore airport and taking a taxi or a bus or all this to go to Puttaparthi. The only way to reach Sathya Sai Baba is when Sathya Sai Baba wills, when Swami wills. And the only way to make him will is through our yearning. To complete the story, Mr. Arun Mandale kept meeting this sadhu a couple more times in a couple of years after that. Because as the sadhu said, he would come down to Indore only in the winter when it became extremely cold high up in the Himalayas. But however hard he tried, Mr. Arun Mandale could not get the name of this sadhu. The sadhu said, "You can call me Sai Ram because that is all that matters." The sadhu didn't care for his name, he didn't care for his fame. The only thing he cared for is Sai Ram. Dear Swami, you have blessed us with knowledge of your presence in our lives. May we sanctify it by thinking of you, chanting your name, and seeing your form wherever we are at all the time. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.